And good afternoon. Welcome to Hour 2 of the Richard Syrett Show. I want to leave the trade war and the tariffs and that nonsense behind for just a moment because something extraordinary is happening across Europe. A great awakening, a populist revolt, a cry from the people, long ignored, long dismissed, long derided by their so-called betters in Brussels, in Berlin, in Paris, and they're demanding to be heard, and now finally they are. So for years, we were told that nationalism was dead, that globalism was inevitable, that the future belonged to the woke technocrats and their utopian schemes. And we were told that the European Union, this unwieldy, top-heavy, anti-democratic bureaucracy, would inevitably extinguish the flames of nationalism, drown out the voices of the working class, and deliver a borderless, soulless future run by smug elites who sip champagne while dictating climate policies that crush farmers, immigration policies that erase cultures, economic policies that enrich only themselves. But the people of Europe have had enough, and they are making their voices heard. Case in point, Belgium. Yes, tiny little Belgium. A country so fractured, so divided that it routinely goes a year, sometimes more, without a functioning government. And yet, somehow, after 7 months of negotiation, they now have a new prime minister, Bart de Wever, a man who is not only a conservative, but a Eurosceptic and a Flemish nationalist. For those of you not aware, Belgium is sort of divided into two sort of linguistic cultural groups, the Walloons and the Flemish. And he's a Flemish nationalist. This is a man who openly admits that he would be happier dying as a citizen of the Netherlands than as a Belgian. And yet, against all odds, he is leading a new coalition government, thanks in part to a Walloon electorate that, after years of leaning left, has finally, mercifully, woken up to the insanity of their own political class. De Wever's rise is not an anomaly, however. It's part of a tidal wave, a populist surge sweeping across the continent. And not only populism from the right, but populism from the left. Italy's Giorgia Meloni, of course. The Netherlands' Geert Wilders. Hungary's Viktor Orbán. Slovakia's Robert Fico. Austria's Herbert Kickl seems poised to become chancellor in Austria in upcoming elections. And let's not forget France, where Marine Le Pen is within striking distance of the presidency. The elites in Brussels must be quaking in their boots. Oh, and Poland. This is a country that's been a bulwark of conservatism and national sovereignty for years. Even with the Law and Justice Party losing its parliamentary majority in 2023, the spirit of Polish nationalism is far from defeated. The people of Poland know exactly what it means to fight for their country's sovereignty, having lived under the yoke of both Nazi and Soviet rule. And they refuse to bow to the dictates of the EU and are proving that the nationalist movement in Eastern Europe is alive and well. Just watch. Poland's return to strong nationalist leadership is inevitable. It's only a matter of time. So let's get back to Giorgia Meloni for a moment. She was supposed to be the EU's worst nightmare. They called her dangerous. Remember that? They labeled her far right. But what happened? She won. And then? The sky didn't fall. Italy didn't descend into chaos. Instead, Meloni has played her cards brilliantly. She hasn't picked pointless fights with Brussels. She's consolidated power. She's positioned herself as the strongest leader in Italy in decades. And she's proving that nationalist, populist leadership is not only viable, it's inevitable. And what do they call it? What does the legacy media, the stenographers for the ruling class, call this democratic shift? Do they call it a movement of the people? A return to common sense? A demand for national sovereignty? For border security? For the rights of individual nations to determine their own destinies? No, of course not. They call it far-right extremism, fascism. They call it dangerous. Why? Because these new leaders dare to put their own people first. Because they dare to question the sanctity of the European Union, this crumbling empire run by unaccountable bureaucrats who despise the very people they rule. The EU was supposed to stop populism. It was supposed to be the ultimate antidote to nationalism. Instead, it's become a factory for populists, fueling a rebellion that even Brussels can no longer contain. The call, my friends, is coming from inside the house. And let's not forget about Viktor Orbán of Hungary. This is a man who's done playing defense. He's not just governing, he's going on the offensive. He's declared war on the Brussels elite. An offensive to occupy Brussels, he calls it. That's not just rhetoric. He's building a coalition. Patriots for Europe is now the third largest group in the European Parliament. The same parliament that once mocked him, dismissed him, threatened him. Now they have to contend with him. The Hungarian leader has been such a staunch ally of Donald Trump, and it's no coincidence that this conservative resurgence in Europe is happening as Trump has reclaimed the White House. The message from Washington will no longer be the globalist drivel of Joe Biden and his handlers. It will be America first, and in Europe, that translates to Hungary first, Italy first, Belgium first, Poland first. So the Trump presidency is not just an American event, it's a global one. And the European people are responding accordingly. Now let's address the elephant in the room. The media's panic. Oh, watch them squirm. Watch them foam at the mouth as they clutch their pearls or readjust their cravats over the radical right, as they call it, rising in Europe. They try to paint people like Wilders and Meloni and Le Pen as extremists. What exactly is so extreme about wanting secure borders, about wanting lower taxes, about wanting energy independence, about refusing to bow to the EU's endless stream of decrees that make life harder for the average worker while enriching the bureaucrats and the oligarchs? You know what's extreme? Open borders. The mass importation of migrants who refuse to assimilate, who overwhelm social services, who turn once safe neighborhoods into crime-ridden no-go zones. You know what's extreme? The EU's suicidal obsession with net zero, destroying agriculture, punishing energy producers, making European winters colder and darker. You know what's extreme? Handing over national sovereignty to an unelected cartel of bureaucrats who don't answer to anyone. The populist revolt isn't extreme, it's common sense. And that's what makes it so terrifying to the establishment. They know that if the people of Europe actually get a real taste of real leadership, if they get even a glimpse of what life could be like without the dead hand of Brussels weighing them down, there'll be no going back. Just look at what's happening in France. Emmanuel Macron's presidency hanging by a thread. If he resigns before 2027, which is looking more and more likely, Marine Le Pen could take over even sooner. The very idea of it sends shivers down the spines of the champagne socialists in the European Parliament. They call her a threat to democracy. But what is she actually threatening? Not democracy, but their monopoly on it. And here in Canada, we can only hope and pray that this populist wave reaches our shores before it's too late. Will it be Pierre Poilievre who finally taps into this hunger for change? Well, he's certainly a step in the right direction. But does he have the courage? Or will it be Maxime Bernier in the People's Party? Or someone else entirely, someone not yet in the public eye? Whoever it ends up being, they better show up fast, because we don't have much time left. The globalists have overplayed their hand. They thought they had crushed the populist right in Europe. They thought Brexit was a fluke. They thought Trump was an aberration. But now, they're waking up to a reality that they never expected. The populists are back, stronger than ever, and this time, they're not going anywhere. So to the elites in Brussels, to the self-righteous pundits in the mainstream media, and to the sneering academics and unelected bureaucrats who think they can dictate the fate of a nation, listen carefully. The people of Europe are speaking, and they're saying, enough. This isn't a moment. This is a movement. And it's only just beginning. Hey, this is Richard Syrett. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe.